Hi, boys and girls. In section 2.6, we are going to be learning how to solve proportions. Now, you've probably solved simple proportions before, but some of these are going to be really complicated and super fun. All right, here's your basic proportion. Now, first of all, let me just say that I have an issue with the way they're telling you to solve proportions. This is not how I teach solving proportions. So I'm going to do this example, but I'm going to do it my own way because I don't like their method. All right, when you have a proportion, all right, x over 45 is equal to 15 over 25. What we do is we cross multiply these, okay? We multiply this number times this number, all right? The ones that are across from each other get multiplied. That'll give us 25x, all right? And then we're going to multiply 45 times 15, all right? We're going to need a calculator for that. Hang on while I get... Okay, so now I have my calculator. I should have known I was going to need this. All right, 15 times 45 is 675. Now, the only thing we have left to do is to get x by itself, so we just divide both sides by 25. Okay, and 675 divided by 25 is 27. So x is 27. See, I got the same result they did, but I got it in way fewer steps, okay? So with proportions, we're going to cross multiply. We're going to multiply the numbers together that are across from each other, and we set them equal to each other, just like this, okay? Let's look at another example. This is n minus 4 over 8 equals 3 over 2, okay? We have n minus 4 over 8 equals 3 over 2, right? We cross multiply. We take the 8 and we multiply it with the 3. That gives us 24. And then on the other side of the equal sign, we're going to have 2 times n minus 4. Okay? So we need to use the distributive property here and multiply 2 times both of those numbers. 2 times n is 2n. And 2 times minus 4 is minus 8. Now we just isolate our variable. We want to get 2n by itself, so we add 8 to both sides. This gives me 32 equals 2n. Divide both sides by 2, and we get n is 16. So A was the correct answer. Okay. All right, so here we're getting a little more complicated. They know you've already learned to solve equations with the variables on both sides. So now once you cross multiply, that's what you're going to have is variables on both sides. All right, so I'll rewrite this one. X over 9 is equal to 2x minus 3 over 24. Okay. When we cross multiply, we go 24 times x is 24x. And on the right-hand side, we're going to have 9 times 2x minus 3. Whenever you have an expression like this, you're going to need to put it in parentheses because the 9 has to be multiplied with both of these terms. So that's why we're doing it this way and using the distributive property. All right. So on the next line down, we have 24x equals 9 times 2x is 18x. And 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. Now we need to get all of our variables on one side. We normally will go after the smaller variable, and 18 is smaller than 24. So subtract 18x from both sides. That gives me 6x equals negative 27. Okay. Now, 27 doesn't divide evenly by 6. So we will do it like this, and they're giving the answer in decimal format. I'm not a huge fan of decimals. I prefer fractions, but whatever, okay? So we get x is equal to negative 4.5, okay? This is so fun. Let's try a check. How about that? Okay, so we have x over 12 equals 2x minus 5 over 18. Okay. Now, we cross multiply. The x gets multiplied with the 18, and that gives us 18x. On the other side, we're going to multiply 12 times 2x minus 5. Okay. Again, we'll want to distribute. 12 times 2x is 24x, and 12 times negative 5 is negative 60. Now I want to get all my variables on one side. Normally we go after the smaller variable, but if we were to go after this 18, what's going to happen? This left side is going to become like a black hole over here. There's not going to be anything there. And I hate to have 0 on one side of the equation and all the junk on the other. So I'm going to make an exception this time, and I'm going to get rid of the 24x. Which gives us a negative 6x equals negative 60. And then when we divide both sides by negative 6, we get x is 10. Because negative divided by negative is a positive. I love these. I have a lot of fun with these. Okay, word problems. I am not the greatest fan of word problems. I don't know how you become a math teacher and still don't like word problems, but it seems like they just try to complicate things as much as possible. On the other hand, word problems are important because that's how we use math in real life. But if I'm going to screw up, it's going to be on a word problem. So here we have, apparently Mexico City is sinking. Who knew? I had no idea. It says parts of Mexico City are sinking at a rate of 140 centimeters every 5 years. If this rate remains constant, how many centimeters will the city sink in the next 12 years? So we got a whole bunch of work over here. Step 1, estimate the solution. All right, so come up with a number that you think would be a reasonable solution. If it's sinking 140 centimeters in 5 years, all right, in 10 years, you would multiply 140 times 2. That would give you 280. So it's going to be like 280 in 10 years. But because 10 years is slightly less than 12 years, Mexico City will sink, I don't know, what would you put there? More than, I guess. See why I hate these things? More than 280 centimeters in 12 years. So we expect our answer to be greater than 280, okay? So generally with these kinds of word problems, I always tell my students to make a word fraction to guide you, okay? So what I would make in this case is how much it sinks in how many years. You make a word fraction to keep yourself honest, because when you're making a proportion, you have to do samesies, okay? If you're going to have how much it sinks over how many years here, you've got to have how much it sinks over how many years here. That's how you set up a proportion. All right, so if we know Mexico City is sinking at 140 centimeters every 5 years, we want to know how much how much will it sink in 12 years? See? Then we get rid of this stupid work they have because I don't like how they do it. And we cross multiply. What's 140 times 12? Don't know off the top of my head. Going for the calculator. Oh, I'm sure it's over there on that other junk they've got, but I don't have to read all that. 140 times 12 equals. So 1680 equals 5x. Divide both sides by 5. And we find that in 12 years, we expect Mexico City to sink 336, what was this, centimeters? In 12 years. Yes. It's interesting. They had a little blurb on the side there. If you're looking at your workbook, it tells you what actually is causing the sinkage. It's a combination of things, and they don't think it would remain constant at all. Chuck says, how do you know your solution is reasonable? Well, we knew it was going to be a little bit more than 280. Well, it's a little more than 280, so we feel pretty good about that. So here we have an example word problem. A guide company makes a trail mix of raisins and mixed nuts. Okay, so you got to picture this. Their trail mix is made up of 2 things. All right, raisins and mixed nuts. And if you add these two things together, you get the total trail mix. So it's important to have a visual picture on this one to start off with. There are actually a couple ways to solve this problem. What they're telling us, they're asking us, how many pounds of raisins does the guide company need to mix with 14 pounds of mixed nuts to make the trail mix 30% raisins? All right. Well, 30% can be written as 30 over 100. Out of 100 occurrences, 30 would be 30%. Okay, so that's what they're trying to show you here. And they're saying in words, this would mean that there will be 30 raisins. For a minute, I'm like drawing a blank. How do you spell raisins? 30 raisins in the whole trail mix. You know, for the total trail mix, because 100 would represent 100% of the trail mix. 30 of them would be raisins. So if we're going to use this word fraction, we would set it up like this, all right? Let's see. And they want R plus 14 to be the number of pounds of trail mix they're going to make, all right? So you would have the number of raisins, which would be R, over the pounds of trail mix, R plus 14, would be equal to 30 over 100. Now we're staying true to our word fraction here because you see here, this was raisins over trail mix, all right? There's 30% raisins and 100% trail mix, and the R represents the amount of raisins, and R plus 14 equals the total trail mix, okay? So they're saying this is one way you can solve this. We would cross multiply this and solve for x. I hope I can fit this in here because you know I write big. 100 times R would be 100R. Oh my gosh, hang on a second. I get interrupted with announcements even when I'm videotaping. Okay, so R times 100 is 100R. Over here, we're going to multiply 30 times R plus 14. All right, so we have 100R equals 30 times R is 30R, and 30 times 14 is, I think it's 520, but I don't dare do math in my head because that's where I screw up. If I'm going to make a mistake, it's going to be there. You should always check your work too, even though you think you're smart. See, I was saying 520 and it's 420. All right, plus 420. I would have screwed it up. Now I want to get all my variables on one side, so I subtract 30R from both sides. And that will give me 70R equals 420. And then when you divide both sides by 70, all right, those cancel and you get that R is 6. So, question is, if you have 14 pounds of mixed nuts, you will need to have 6 pounds of raisins to make a mix that is 30% raisins. Now, this even drags on further. I mean, this page is probably terrifying to you because now they go to method 2. Okay. Oh, here's another way you could have solved it. All right. Well, we did raisins over entire trail mix in the first one, but they're saying you could set it up. Here's their word fraction, raisins over mixed nuts. Okay. So then if you had 30% raisins, 70% would be mixed nuts. All right. And then they're saying you could solve it all this way also. All right. And then they're asking you to do this down here and blah, blah, blah. And which of these following things would work if she was making a mixture of 20% plant food? I'm not going to ask you that. That is not even the fun part of proportions. So don't pay any attention to those. Okay, that brings us to our examples, okay? I'm just going to do a couple of examples to finish off this video, and then I will do more examples in class. But before that, okay, don't sign off yet, because I'm going to give you extra credit, which I never give. I will give you extra credit if you send me an email with fried chicken as the topic, you know, in that little read where you say what it's about. If you type fried chicken and send me an email, I'll give you extra credit because that tells me you watched my video. All right. So fried chicken email. Fried chicken's my favorite food. So, all right. I'm only going to do one of these. These are super easy. Number 2, we would go cross multiply. T times 12 is 12T equals 2 times 6 is 12. Divide both sides by 12 to get t by itself, and we get t is 1. Straightforward. I think you've probably already learned how to do these. Let's get to a little more interesting one before I get interrupted again. Okay, here's one with the distributive property, number 14. Cross multiply. Of course, I pick one I can't multiply in my head. 36 times 7 equals 252. All right, and then we're going to multiply 21 times x plus 9. Okay, so we have 252 equals 21x plus whatever 21 times 9 is, 189. Right? To get the 21x by itself, we subtract 189 from both sides. 252 minus 189 equals 63. Equals 21x. Last step, divide both sides by 21. And you get x is 3. Super. I know, I'm liking it. Then we got to examples that had more than one variable, okay? Let's look at number 19. We're going to cross multiply, so we're going to have 10 being multiplied with 4v plus 7 equals 15 times 6v plus 2, all right? 10 times 4v is 40v plus 70 equals 15 times 6 is, I think it's 90, but you should always check. It's 90. 90v plus 30. Get rid of the smaller variable. Subtract 40v from both sides. And that gives me 70 equals 50v plus 30. Subtract 30 from both sides. And that gives me 40 equals 50v. Divide both sides by 50. And I get that v is 4/5, or 0.8 if you want to do a decimal. And since it says round to the nearest hundredth, that's probably what they want in reveal. They probably want the decimal. Okay. I could do a word problem, but it's time to go home, and I'm really kind of tired. So remember to send me that email with chicken in the rebar and fried chicken, yeah. And I'll give you some extra credit for second quarter. You start off with extra credit. It'd be great. All right. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in class.